two, three, four. 1, 2, 3, 4. Do 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 do. Ba ba ba. All right, greetings from the Survival Pod. This is Freedom Phil, and what's the topic? Should we have like IQ tests and a number of standards for immigration? I'm just throwing that out there because seems like worldwide there's differences, and people don't want to talk about that. And you're seeing these differences very well expressed in Europe in general, the UK, that poor kid who got stabbed to death by a bunch of African migrants in the park, and his parents were basically trotted out there to give some pro-diversity statement. I'm just saying, I really don't believe the parents actually believe what they said. I think the government kind of forced them to do that, and all for what? Yeah, Freedom Phil, like, subscribe. Let's get into it, and always turn up the video speed. And why do I say that? Because, to be real about it, if you're watching videos at regular speed, shit, man. So if I upload this, you should be turning up to 1.75. Not to mention, the name of the channel is literally what to do. Turn up the video speed. This is Freedom Phil. Like, subscribe. Let's get into it. I'm sitting there watching the situation unfold, and like they did an IQ test. Actually, a black guy did it. He went all through Africa, and he just found that sub-Saharan people are effectively like 60 IQ. You understand? We actually, we lowered the threshold back in like, was it the 70s, like the 90s, because it turned out when they looked at urban communities in America, like hip-hop rap communities, because they used to be like, what, 80 IQ or something like that. For, but consider below that, you were functionally retarded, and it is just different levels. Well, Somalia, Nigeria, a functionally retarded people, and this is going to sound really fucked up, but hey, maybe colonialism actually raised your IQ. Maybe it did some good. Just saying. People get pissed off about that statement, but fuck if it was true, and then it's like, you see these countries that are high trust societies, they really have their act together. Like Japan. And then you see like these jackasses, internet fame, or just, you see these cases where you look at these sub-Saharans and they're in some country where you're literally like 40 points or more below these people's IQ. And that's if the regular person's a normal person in that country. We're not talking like, fucking some genius at 120, 130 or whatever, What I'm getting at with this is, and is it even fair for someone with a 60 IQ that doesn't fit into the culture to be in a country where effectively you're just going to be a ward of the state? Wouldn't it be easier to fix the problems in Africa than import a bunch of retards from Africa? And I say this because there are people that are highly educated and greatly skilled in Africa. There's no doubt of that. But then it seems like we're not getting those people when it comes to like migration. Just like with the horrible levels of inbreeding within the Muslim world. I'm sorry, you need to quit fucking your cousins. And I get it, the reasons for, land distribution and stuff. You want to keep everything within the family so the wealth stays within the greater clan or family. But banging your cousins is producing tard babies. Okay? And everybody knows this. Like, this isn't the fucking year 700 anymore. We have genetics. We can look at things. We can tell things. But, you think to yourself, this like, and by the way, the people that cause these problems are generally liberals, but particularly women. Oh my God, no, nobody can suffer. And even like good conservative Christian people that are like, like we need to help the people, blah, blah, blah. Like there's some of the people that if they're intelligent enough and they have the capabilities, they could function anywhere in the world. But we're getting into a society today where we're not just the guy bolting the same like nut on a fucking Ford or something in a factory. That job is going the way of the dodo. Okay. We've got machines doing a lot of the work today in America. We frankly don't have the space for all the American fucking idiots. We don't. I mean, arguably, if we were just, say, hey, see all that government land out there? Build earth shelters out there. We have more than enough land to fix the problems, the homeless and the poor and everything. We have it. We just don't because our system's set up the way it is. But if we already have all these problems in America and Europe, it's its own fucking disaster. I mean, I can't believe the way the government, I mean, I can't for 1 second believe the guy who had his kid murdered by a bunch of African migrants in a park would really say, this isn't about race, blah, 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 and all this crap. He just went out and they trotted him out just to say the government approved slogan. Like, if if I was that guy, I'd be like, kick them all the fuck out. Because if they weren't here, my son would be alive today. That's me, though. And they're like, they probably coaxed him and said, hey, we don't want to have a riot happen because of this. But really, you take in a bunch of people that are functionally retarded from broke-ass countries, and the only thing they've learned to do is scam or live off welfare or work shit jobs. And meanwhile, it's kind of like what people have said for a while now. You've got, veterans, whatever country you're in, you've got veterans that are homeless, and you're taking in migrants from other countries. Now, I don't know about you, but what does that say to your public? I mean, the people that serve their country are living on the streets, but some motherfucker who just showed up yesterday, you're giving an apartment to. Hell, if they're Somali and they're making millions of dollars and driving fancy cars and living in McMansions, all on the public dime for voting reasons. And that, by the way, this is why, at this point, like when people talk about, oh, the evil Republic, fuck you, man. The Republicans are just incompetent. The Democrats are fucking evil. I'm just being honest about it. You're like literally selling out the future of your country and saying, oh, it's for diversity. My diversities. And then we got to talk about anchor babies. That shit should have stopped the moment the last slave was freed. Like, you're free, and then your kids are Americans, and you're Americans. That's where it should have stopped. It was for people that were slaves. You don't see birthright citizenship in a lot of other countries. What you see is if one of the parents, at least one of the parents, is of a country, then yeah, your kid has that dual citizenship. But you don't see this birthright citizenship. And what pisses me off about it is literally a way that foreign countries can subvert us at this point. They fly over here at month 9, like 8 months pregnant, give birth, and then they go back to, say, China or India or wherever. And China's the one I'm really looking at. Because then when they come over here and they get into our colleges, taking up space, effectively this Chinese person taking up space in our fucking universities. And by the way, our universities are overpriced, and there's just too much shit you have to do. And then they get into our corporations and they're taking our technology. Once they know what they're doing, they just, hey, fuck off back to China and bring up the technology we're developing. I think you should have, in order to be working on some major government contracts, you should have to be a multi-generational heritage American. Like, you should have no ties to any other country. Because can you imagine back during the Cold War, if we were just like willy-nilly about, oh, they're Russians. Like, unless they were people that like basically, they were spies and they came over and they defected. I get that. But like, can you imagine us taking in like Russians? And I'm not talking about like where they take genius scientists or something like that. By the way, that's what H-1B was really meant for. Genius scientists. Not fucking crappy programmers from India that don't know what they're doing, working at degree mills. They go to a degree mill, they get their sheet of paper, and then they come over here and they can't really fucking do the job. No, we have a situation where, as far as this country goes, there's absolutely no reason we should be taking anybody in at this point. Like, we have Americans that need jobs. We have Americans on welfare. Like, if no one was on welfare just think about this one for a second. If nobody in America was on welfare, and we were all working to capacity, with the exception of people that were like actually legitimately disabled, mental or physical, you know, and the people that were smart enough to save and invest were early retired, then I could see bringing people in if we had a void to fill. But we don't. We don't have a void to fill. We have a problem of the poor being out competed by some poor from another country. We don't need broke ass Latinos or Africans or people from the East Bloc. We don't fucking need that. We already got more than enough poverty in our country. The objective is to solve the poverty, not stimulate it. No, I don't really care either way. You know, the whole South African refugees thing, I'm kind of 50-50 on it. But let's bring it back to what I was originally talking about. Okay, let's get an IQ test on them. Are they functional? Do they have an IQ high enough to basically function in our society? But if we're talking about some, you know, it's like when people talk about Christians from Africa. Wouldn't it be easier to fix Africa than it is to fucking bring over millions of people? You know, just think about it for a second. And if you're talking about like white farmers, by the way, white Dutch farmers, like historically Dutch farmers. Why isn't fucking the whole area of Europe taking them in? Oh, we want diversity, but just not white people. You know? I don't know. Personally, I look at South Africa, and that's an example of that country is slowly devolving back into Africa. I've often thought, off and on, how would Africa be doing if it was another group of people living there? Like if it was the Chinese or the Asians, how would that country be doing? You know, if you got an intellect of at least 100 to 130, somewhere in that range. Yeah, you think about that for a second and you're like, 60 IQ in a lot of sub-Saharan Africa, 100 IQ. I wonder if that'll make a difference on how your society develops. And then the idea that like, well, let's just bring a bunch of broke people from these countries here. I wonder if they're going to be able to function. You know, the truth is, and it is really shitty. It really is. You got a situation where for thousands of years, you needed manual labor to do the jobs. So you didn't need to be intelligent to do that. You needed the best cognitive skills. So you could effectively have somebody with a 60 IQ, 80 or below IQ. You could have these people shoveling the shit out of the stalls. They could be farming. They could be working in a factory, doing the same thing 24/7. You know, I shouldn't say 24/7, but, 40 hours a week. That was then. Now we live in now world. And I guess that's one of my problems with a lot of the politicians. They're living like we're still in the 1960s or the 70s or the 80s. Their mentality is America is still that. Europe is still that. It's not. It's going to be harder and harder just to find placements for your actual heritage people than having your heritage people compete with a bunch of broke-ass labor from another country that may or may not have the talent. I mean, who does this benefit? And the answer is kind of simple. The 1%. And I don't blame everything on the 1%. I know a lot of people they love to go off about it, but the big companies love this cheap labor. These big companies have people who live in whole other areas of the country. Like there's the good side of town and the bad side of town, and then there's the elite side of town. They live in the elite side of town. When they're flooding your communities with a bunch of low IQ fucking dipshits, that are prone to violence because they don't have the cognitive skills to think their way out of things, they're not affected by it. And people will sit there and use this line like diversity is our strength. No, it's not. Unity is our strength. Intelligence is our strength. Numerous ideas that come together and then we test which ones work. That's a strength. But this blanket statement of diversity is our strength, when all you're really talking about with diversity is different colors of skin, that's fucking retarded. And by the way, that's just token. That's not real diversity. That's tokenism. Now, let's just say you have highest IQ people from those countries. That would be a strength. But then you have to think about the crime you're doing to the second and third world. When the most intelligent people from the societies can, hop a plane and go somewhere else, they're not improving their country. That brain drain is real. You saw it with the Soviets. You saw it with the Chinese for a while. Now you're seeing the kind of reverse effect where now you see some of these countries, they go over here with the birthright tourism, birthright citizenship, and they're actually kind of doing subversive action. But the reality of it is that if you have the best and the brightest out of, South America, by the way, South America is far more intelligent, unless you're talking about tribal, than friggin' sub-Saharan. But you've got the best and brightest leaving their home countries. What'll inevitably happen is you only have the fucking retards that are still around. You saw this in the ghetto. And people don't like hearing that. People are like, oh, it was white flight. No, let's call it what it really was. It was people pulling the Jeffersons. Because when segregation was there, and I'm not saying yay segregation, but when segregation was a real thing, those people were forced to build a business in their own communities. They were forced to care about the crime on their streets. They were forced to hold people to standards because they couldn't go anywhere else. The minute all these people that are highly intelligent, prosperous, decide, fuck this, I'm moving out, that money leaves, that influence leaves. And then slowly but surely, only the fucking welfare-addicted idiots are still in those communities. You see this in fucking broke-ass logging communities, mining communities. It happens in the white community as well. It's just not as critically bad. It's like you live in a city like Detroit, and there are no real good jobs. So it's not a surprise that someone ends up becoming a drug dealer. But imagine for a second, now here's a wild thought. Imagine you weren't subsidizing people to live there. People would fucking leave. They would. They'd leave. They'd be like, oh, fuck, I'm not staying here. This doesn't work. But you give somebody a check to stay there, they'll stay there forever. But the people who actually have their shit together, they're like, I'm moving me and my family to a community where I'm not worried about my kid getting shot or stabbed. Now, we have all those problems in America. You have those problems in Europe, UK, wherever. Why the fuck would you import more of those problems from third world countries? And the only answer I can come up with is the worse things get for people on the lower end, the better it is for the elites. Because there's no logical reason to do what they're doing other than people making money off of you. And you'll pay more to have the safety you used to have in your own country. You'll pay more to escape the place you're in to try to get to some gated walls for your own protection and your children's future. Just saying. Freedom Phil, like, subscribe, take it easy.